Hi everyone, we are now at the final leg. We have two magical sessions that are about to come up in slightly different ways. So John Bulleid is an award-winning illusion designer whose work has been seen all over the West End and indeed around the world. And as a magician, he's really interested in the role that artificial intelligence can play in magic. Magic and technology have always been intrinsically linked, and magic is always trying to push the boundaries and see what the art of the possible is. But what happens when the technology that you're using cannot be quite controlled fully, particularly when you put a human in the loop who also can't be fully controlled? Does AI have the power to really create illusion, fascination, and wonder in the magical experience? So let's hear it from John Bulleid.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. How's it going? You okay? Yeah. Long day, right? Yeah, here we go. Last two. Let's go. Come on. It's exciting. Lovely to be here. Real genuine pleasure to be able to talk to you people. It's fascinating. So as you said, yeah, I'm an illusion designer. That's what I do. Weird job. I literally make magic happen on stages across the world. For context, I started learning magic when I was 7 years old. I'm 43. I started with the Paul Daniels magic sets. That's how I got into it. It's like a drug. Once you get into it, it changes the way you see the world, and you get fascinated and you can't stop. And I still haven't stopped. I'm always learning. You should know that I'm an associate of the Inner Magic Circle. That's important. The Magic Circle, for those that don't know, is the oldest magic society in the world, set up in 1905 by the best magicians of the time as like a safe space to share secrets and knowledge. And we still do that to this day. We have a headquarters in Euston Station, which you're very welcome to go and visit. We do magic shows. It's not like a sale, but we do magic shows for the public. You can go and see performers. We have a library that has artifacts that go back to the 15th century. We've got cool things like now King Charles, but at the time Prince Charles, joined the Magic Circle. Who knew that? We've got our kings that member of the circle. He did the cups and balls routine, you might know. And we have his cups and balls in our museum on display. We have a fez from Tommy Cooper. We have a straitjacket from Houdini. We've got all sorts in there. It's great. It's really, really cool. Anyway, the point I'm making is I'm not some chancer. So what I'm talking to you about is real, legit stuff. I specialize in illusion design in the theatre. So what you're seeing on the screen, that's me getting interviewed by the news, but what you're seeing on the screen are production shots from various shows over the years that I have the pleasure to create magic for. Probably the biggest show that I work on is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I'm the UK associate on that. What that means is once a year we change the cast. Cast of 47, they join us every year, and we have to teach them every single magic trick in the show. There's over 250 effects in that show that we have to teach to show standard to people that have no experience whatsoever of doing magic ever before in their life. And we have to teach it to the principal cast and also onto the two understudy casts. And it's incredible to use the theatre as a magic box, if you like, to do things that are tiny, blow them up to fill an auditorium like the Palace, which is 1,400 people. The same rules apply in magic, and that's the best thing about magic. The way you make a coin disappear is the same way you make a Statue of Liberty disappear. The same rules apply, you just shift the scale of it, if you like. And that's really why I'm interested in technology in magic, and in AI in particular. There's loads of examples I can give you throughout the years of how we as magicians have used technology to make our art form come to life. By the way, I'm aware that I talk really quickly. So if I'm going too fast, I have a lot in my head. Tell me to stop. If you have any questions, stick your hand up, because this is a conversation, right? So you're very welcome to join in at any time. But also, don't feel you have to. That's also fine. So magic and technology. There's the earliest recorded magic trick is from the time of the pharaohs. A magician called Dedi, for a pharaoh called Cheops, apparently took the head off a goose and put the goose's body down one side of the room, walked the other side with the head, and the goose got up and walked across, and he put the head back on the goose. He apparently also did it with a lion. Took a head, yeah, I know, right? A head off a lion. And then he was asked to do it with a human, but he said, no, I can't do that, because if I do it with a human, I'll be higher than God. And if you're higher than God, you're higher than a pharaoh, and so you get killed. So he's thinking smart. That's what I like. So you can see we started there. That's like our earliest recorded trick. So when you think how much history there is to play with, there's so many examples through history we can look at where we've used techniques to confuse our audiences. If I fast forward quite quickly to a guy called David Berglas, known as the International Man of Mystery, past president of the Magic Circle. His son Martin is our current president, first father and son presidency, quite cool. Anyway, David, on his first TV magic show, froze time in Piccadilly Circus. Now, at the time, this was completely revolutionary. The idea of a live feed on TV was a brand new thing. It's not like we have now when it's constantly on our phones everywhere. This was new technology being used by a magician on national television. He appeared on your TV screen at home with the screen behind him, showing the live feed of Piccadilly Circus, full of buses, traffic, people walking, people on bikes, dogs. The fountain was going. Eros fountain was bubbling away. That was all happening. And he said, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's David Burglas. It's magic time," and clicked his fingers. And everything stopped except from the fountain to show the feed was still live. The whole world stopped in Piccadilly Circus, the busiest place in London at the time. He clicked his fingers, and the world started back up again. An incredible moment, only possible through a combination of technology and magic. The beauty about it was the magic of it, I think, because he knew of the time loads of bus drivers, loads of taxi drivers, and they agreed at a certain moment, I imagine on the bongs of Big Ben, let's say on the second bong of 7 o'clock, on the second bong, stop the traffic. So there was no audio. So all the buses and all the taxis just stopped the traffic. So the traffic had to stop because he made a traffic jam. For the volunteers, the people walking around on their bikes and stuff, he knew loads of vaudeville acts. So he knew people that could balance on bikes impossibly, or dogs who could stop on command while they're walking. And he got them all choreographed to make that one moment happen. And then 2 bongs later, for example, when he clicked his fingers, they came back to life. So in that one instant, he froze time in a completely revolutionary way, right? I think that's incredible. You can see the sort of depth of planning we go to make these little tiny things happen. Same guy became renowned for these huge epic stunts. And again, if you look forward to where we are now, everyone remembers those dark days of the pandemic. We were screwed. We had nothing. Our job is about being live in front of real people. And so when everything went to Zoom, or Teams, everyone's less favorite, but when it was on Zoom, we learned how to hack Zoom. So if you understand as a magician, my job is to hack reality. Whatever reality you believe to be true, I can hack it and make things happen that shouldn't happen, right? So then when our reality becomes a screen, we have no live interaction. So when I say to you, pick a card in real life, there's a genuine feeling that you can pick anything. I can manipulate you and make you pick the card I want you to pick, but you can feel the cards. In Zoom, you can't do that. There's a screen in the way, a camera blocking that. So we had to find a way to beat the camera and make you feel part of what's happening on this side of the camera. So there is now a whole entire subset of magic set up just for virtual shows. The biggest virtual show I did over the pandemic was for 3,000 people on my laptop in my dining room doing tricks across Zoom. It was bonkers. But we had to rewrite the rules. So for example, things like, everyone knows that thing where Zoom glitches and the screen freezes for a couple of seconds, and that's really normal when broadband drops out, whatever. We could make that happen on demand. Because those 2 seconds could be the thing that we need to get the thing we need into position to reveal the trick we're going to reveal later on. So we were looking at how we embrace that and use it. So now we come on to the interesting thing about AI. This is where I'm struggling, I'm not going to lie. So time has gone by. I could ask someone to think of a celebrity. Let's say, for example, I've got an envelope out on stage. There's an envelope that's been out the whole time. I ask someone to name a celebrity, someone to name a city, someone to name an item they could be holding. And then we bring out the envelope, open the envelope, it's been out the whole time, and reveal Tom Cruise holding a banana in Paris, which were the 3 choices, right? And there it is revealed. That's a great trick, round of applause, everyone's very happy. That's incredible, but now you could generate that within seconds on your phone. So I've got nothing left. I can't beat that because you could do that at home at any given moment. There's no wonder there anymore because the prediction is null and void. Because we can make it happen. And I can give you a real life context to this. So I've just finished working on The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the immersive show at Riverside Studios. And I got brought in because they wanted to, you know The Hitchhiker's Guide? You know the story? So they have to rebuild the Earth after it gets destroyed by the Gorgons, I think it is. But they had this idea that at the end of the show, this memory machine was going to pluck memories from the audience, show those memories, and then use those memories to rebuild the Earth with, right? So like real-life mind reading, you say something, it appears, and then on we go. And they were going to use generative AI. They were going to use prompts to do that. So they would get people to say things out loud. Really quick, the AI would recomp the image, and then the image would get played back really fast. That was their plan. A great idea, genuinely very great, and I know it is possible. My concern was, from a storytelling beat, what if someone named something that's completely nothing to do with the story, or offensive? You've then got a room full of 500-600 people looking at something horrific because somebody thought it'd be funny to say that. So as a magician, I've got no control, and as a storyteller, I lose the story. So my advice is to say to them, actually, whilst that is possible, and that is a great way of doing it, we should look at something else. And so we talked about this idea of forcing memories. So if you everyone had written down memories earlier in the show, We then were in the finale, and we've got 3 volunteers to pick a memory. And before they read it out, the thing connected to their head and read their mind, put an image behind them, and then they read it out, and what they said matched the image behind them. Because we'd forced the memory, we could make that image, those 2 things would line up. And it's called a dual reality trick. It's easier to explain, to demonstrate than it is to explain. So I want to show you what a dual reality thing looks like. So what's your name? Nigel, can I borrow you for seconds? Come on over. Round of applause for Nigel, please. Thanks, Nigel. Sorry, mate. No, you're fine. No, I'm not a thief. It's all right. Come and sit down for me, Nigel. So, this is one of my favorite things to do, right? This was originally done by Paul Daniels, very famously. There's loads of guys that have done it. This is a box of tissues. Can you hold that box of tissues for me? This is clear? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tissue vanish for you. That's the idea, okay? So watch the tissue. You guys can watch very closely. Watch the tissue. Ready? Take a tissue, roll it into a ball up like this. You see? And you ready? Watch. 1, 2, 3. It's gone. Cool, right? Is it in your pocket? No, different trick. Right, we'll try again. You ready? Let's see. Bigger ball this time. You ready? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. You all right? What was that? Oh, don't ignore them. Don't worry about that. You ready? So, 1, 2, 3. Gone. One more. That one that was a bit bigger made you do something. Let's see if we can make a bigger ball. See if it makes something else happen. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Whoa. What are you doing? One more. One more. It's just a normal chair. You ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Nigel, everybody. Round of applause. Thank you so much. You can hear that. Thank you so much, mate. Thank you. Thank you. So, this is an example of dual reality. So it's called instant stooging in magic. On the tissue box is an instruction for Nigel that says whenever you want to, jump up like you've had an electric shock. So he's then playing a trick on all of you why he's jumping up, right? So that's a trick he's doing, and you guys are enjoying the fact that he's getting fooled by tissue going over his shoulder, which you obviously get to see at the end and see that we're all friends here and it's all. But you can see there's 2 tricks happening at once, right? And that's why I think we need to go with this sort of stuff, because as good, sorry, making a mess of the stage, as good as AI is, and it genuinely is incredible, how can we manipulate it to be what we need it to be as magicians? Do you understand what I mean? It's a really interesting conversation. So anyway, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about this. So I want to check my notes, make sure I've got something else I want to talk to you about first, which was that. Yes, phone magic. So I'm not going to demonstrate it because I don't really do very much of it, but there are, again, a whole subset of magic to do with phones and apps. And using technology, as in a piece of tech that we have everywhere, there are now apps that hide things in plain sight. So calculators, all that sort of stuff that we can do things with on your phones, on our phones, all that sort of business. What's really interesting is we've just had the Blackpool Magic Convention this weekend, which is the biggest magic convention in the world. Magicians from all over the world gather in Blackpool, of all places, and there's a huge, huge magic convention, lectures, shows, all sorts of things. One of the biggest hits of Blackpool this year has been a trick developed by a guy called David, who is he's himself the tech magician, and it's an effect where essentially you borrow someone's phone, you put it in a leather wallet, you take an object like a dice, and you rest it on their screen, cover it with a piece of cloth, and the dice goes through their phone and drops out the other side. It's actually a really old trick. Ali Bongo, one of the first magicians on TV, did a version of dice through mirror, and it's the same thing, but rather than a mirror, it's a phone. I'm finding it interesting that the guy who views himself as the tech magician is actually going back to using old effects, but just changing the object to be a piece of tech and saying it's a piece of tech magic, because we're now more used to phones than we are to mirrors, I guess. But where are we going next? How can we use these techniques within tech to make magic work? And I still don't know. It's a genuine question. Let me talk about theatre for a minute. So, I love theatre. It's the best place in the world. I think it's incredible. When you go and watch a show and you sit down, we have an agreement that you're leaving the real world behind. And you're going to come into this space and you're going to watch whatever's happening in front of you and fully be immersed in it. What's the joy for me about making illusions happen in shows is when I say to you, someone is going to take a potion and transform into somebody else, I don't have to ask you to imagine that anymore. It happens. I can make that happen. You know, I did a show for the RSC a few years ago where I had to make an elephant vanish. And we made the elephant vanish. It wasn't like, oh, trust us, the elephant's going to go. It vanished 80 times in a row, clean as you like. The elephant disappeared, 2.5 seconds. Thank you very much. It was great. And so, but what I love about it is it tells the story in the cleanest possible way. It can be used to elevate the storytelling. And I believe that's where we're going to end up with AI in magic, that we're not trying to hide the fact we're using it. We're using it as a tool to make our work better, because I don't think we can take the human completely out of the loop in magic. So we were talking earlier on the social media feeds about where I think we can use AI. So I know that you can use AI, you can train it, you can do various things, right? So I could, in theory, train AI how to do magic tricks. In fact, before I started today, I thought I'd ask AI, how would you make an elephant disappear, just to see what it said. And it very cleverly said, can't break the magician's code and tell me how it would do it, but these are some popular techniques. And it listed 3 techniques which would work. But these three techniques are exposed in books by magicians from the 1900s. We've moved on a lot since then. We still use those techniques, but we've got better with new technology. So I find it really interesting that the AI is still relying on our knowledge as magicians to make up a version of what it thinks a magic trick could be. So I don't think we're ever going to get to a place where the AI can deliver the magic, because it needs our knowledge of every bit of magic that went before us and our experience of doing it to make it work. Yes? So think about card tricks, for example. I've spent far too long playing with cards. So for example, to make a card disappear and reappear was 3 weeks of my life. And all I'm doing is I'm hooking behind my fingers and doing it really quickly with a bigger movement so you can't see it go behind my fingers, right? So I'm spending 3 weeks doing this to get the muscle memory in my fingers quick enough to be able to do this, right? How do you teach AI to do that? I don't know if you can. I don't know, can we teach AI a model that could teach a robot with manipulation in its fingers that we have in our hands to make this thing happen? And you can see it doesn't always work. And it is all to do with the feeling of the card on the fingers. I was working last night, and I was talking to someone about cutting cards, and I can feel on the pad of my thumb roughly how many cards I'm cutting from a deck. So they challenged me to cut the deck in half, and I was 1 away, which I did on purpose because the 1 away was their card. But they didn't know that at the time. But I could do 27 cards, knowing it's 27 cards. But again, it's a question, can we train AI to do that? I don't know. But it'd be cool if we could, because then I could have a robot magician, which I think would be really fun, to have a gig where I've got a robot next to me doing magic. That would be mad, but so much fun. Anyway, the thing I want to talk to you about, so there's that. So in the theatre, we use technology all the time. So I was working with the RSC the last few years, looking at how we use digital technology in a physical space. What we spent our time looking at was VR, and how you could put an audience into a theatre from home. So during the pandemic, as you would have seen, people film theatre shows, put them on TV, and that's what you got to watch for theatre. It's not the same, because you're not in the room. You're not feeling the feelings that people are feeling, and it's not the shared experience that theatre wonderfully is. So I believe there has to be a different offering. There has to be a reason why you're watching it on a screen and you're not going to the space to watch it. The conclusion, one of the ideas we were playing with was, what if, for example, there was a ghost in the story? Right? And so the people on stage are doing the play, and then a chair moves by itself. So I can take care of that. I can make chairs and stuff move around. That's fine. I can make that illusion work for the physical space. The people in the space, they'll see the chair move by itself. But what if the people watching at home, they're the ghost? So they're choosing when to make the chair move. And so they're engaging in a digital way with a physical space to make it do something different, yeah? And that's where I think we're sort of heading towards. And we're still exploring, we're still looking at, if you take LiDAR scans of a theatre, we can put anyone anywhere to look at the show from a digital point of view. We're looking at trackers. Can we put trackers on the performers? So when they're walking on stage and they lift their right arm up, it changes the lights for them. So we automate the processes. And again, I can see a use there for things like AI within the theatre to automate these things, to take away the element of human error that happens within theatre shows. You know, if a follow spot, for example, is trying to follow a performer, and for some reason the performer decides to go left instead of right today, and we get that slight jerk on the follow spots, if it's a piece of technology following them on a tracker, you trust that more to be more precise with the tracking. I had a show last year in Copenhagen where we were doing Beauty and the Beast, and the set was full of LED screens that moved in and out, and the performers had trackers on, and again, this might be a limitation, but the trackers struggled because the light was bouncing off the screens and interfering with the tracking system. So they ended up changing the tracking system to a different type of tracking system to get away from relying on being able to get a shot on the tracking system to make it work. So I can see there's still gremlins in the works, but I do think that is where we're going to go. And then we can use technology to heighten illusions. So if you look at, for example, Strange Things, The First Shadows, two of my best mates did the effects for that. And there's a number of things in there where we use projection to back up things like smoke. So we make some smoke appear at someone's mouth, and then projection without the audience knowing is taking over and filling the stage with projected smoke, which is easier to do from a running point of view, because you don't have to worry about actual smoke being on the stage, but it can give the impression of the smoke being where you need it to be. So you can see how we're trying to use these digital techniques in physical spaces and trying to really embrace them, really understand them. Is this making any sense to anybody? I just want to check. Okay, good, because I've got a lot. So how much? I've got 20 minutes left, that's fine. That. Yes. And then we also talked about the idea of projection mapping. And again, it's that idea that if you can track people and we can create images that we can track onto those people, could somebody, for example, there's a great book called Something Wicked This Way Comes. And there's in there a character whose tattoos move on his body, similar to Maui and Moana, any Disney fans in the house. But is there a way to projection map onto somebody so we can make their tattoos move on their skin? And if so, could that tattoo be controlled by a model, an AI model that could make the tattoo move in a different way depending on how they were moving themselves? And I believe that is possible. We just need to get to that position where we have the investment in our industry to be able to afford to play in that sort of way. And that is the other big thing about the theatre, is there isn't, unless you're on a big commercial show, like Potter or Stranger Things, we don't have the finances to invest in these sort of things. So we still go back to fishing line and mirrors and smoke and the old techniques, but we now use better lights or surround sound, those sort of things to help sell the effect in a different way. But it'd be really cool to get to a place where this sort of stuff is affordable for theatres that don't have that kind of money to invest in that technology, that could then deliver those moments of pure wonder that are physical but backed up by digital. And I think that is where the industry needs to head. Good. I think that's about all we've got. Yeah, I want to do some Q&As. We've got about 15 minutes. I want to make sure I've got time for some questions. I think there might be some. So does anybody have any questions about stuff I've talked about? If not, I can talk some more. Does anyone have any questions? Very good. What's my favorite trick? Good question, thanks, sir. So my favorite trick is a guy called Harry Connick Jr. No, Harry, I can't remember his name now. There's an iconic trick where he has a light bulb, he holds a light bulb, and he waves his hand over the top, and the light bulb lights up in his hand. And then he lets go, and the light bulb starts floating. And then he passes a hoop around the light bulb, and that's exciting. And then he takes it down to the audience, and he gives it to an audience member, and it lights up in their hand, and then turns off. And then he makes it float in front of the audience member and shows that it's floating. And then he walks back up on stage and said, my friends at the back, you need to see this. And he sends the light bulb back over the stalls, and it flies out over the back of the stalls, and then all the way back to him. And that, to me, is like such a pure moment of wonder, because it's a light bulb that shouldn't turn on and off by itself, firstly. It's floating, which also shouldn't do. And then it flies out over the audience after being down over there somewhere. So, no, definitely not. Only because the technical rig for it, there is not the space to do that here, that's why. But, yeah. I think that's definitely my favorite trick that I saw when I was a kid, definitely. So, yes.
What's the biggest sort of mistake or cock-up?
Personally or in a show? Either. That's a great question. So the question was, what's the biggest cock-up or mistake that's happened in my work? There's loads, if I'm honest. The joy about magic is you learn to cover mistakes really well. So without realizing it, stuff could go wrong, and we try and play it off as being exactly what it's meant to be, because you guys don't know what's meant to happen. So we're always at least one step ahead of you. So for me, probably the biggest mistake that's happened for me in stage work was the elephant vanish. So I had to make this elephant disappear for the show called The Magician's Elephants. We workshopped it for about 2 weeks. The vanish took about 9 seconds at the end of the workshops, which was too long. That doesn't feel like a vanish. It feels like a really slow blink of your eyes and then open, the elephant had gone. That's not magic. We got it down to 2.5 seconds for being the time that the vanish took. We tried doing 2.25 seconds on the first night, and we saw his trunk. So everything had gone apart from the trunk at the front of the elephant, and that was at the RSC, and that's in front of like 2,000 people. So I think that's probably the biggest one where I've been like, that's bad. So then in the tech notes, we increased the lighting cube by 0.25 a second to 2.5, and that solved it. So that small margin of error was like, yeah, and then in terms of like me personally, I do private parties, weddings. You'll see some close-up later on, actually. I'm doing some close-up downstairs. I do a trick where choose a card, sign the cards, and then I regurgitate your signed playing card. I do it at weddings quite a lot. And I was doing it for bride and groom, and as I went to regurgitate the card got lodged in my throat. And I genuinely started choking. which is quite scary. So I had to use all my back muscles to really cough really hard, and this card flew out of my mouth, and I caught it, thankfully, but it was covered in, like, throat stuff. It was the right card, yeah, that was thankfully. But in that moment, I had nothing. Like, there was no way out of that trick. I didn't have any other outs, because I had to get that card literally out of my mouth. So, yeah, I think those two would be my two kind of big ones that I always go, oh, that was close.
What about not you?
Not me in terms of big. Well, I mean, there's great footage on YouTube of guys. There's a trick called slam and stab where you put my dear friend Martin, who died a few years ago. He's on YouTube with this. There's a trick where you have a wooden base with a huge metal spike sticking out of it, and you cover it in paper bags. You mix them up so no one knows where the metal spike is, and the magician takes the spectator's hand and slams them down on the paper bags. And he got it wrong. And there's this amazing clip where he slams it down, and the lady screams in pain, as you'd imagine. And as she pulls off, you see the blood squirt out of, and she's got this hole in her hand and this spike. And Martin's there like, oh, God, this is bad. Like on live TV. Yeah, that would probably be my kind of like, that's the worst kind of, yeah. That one still sticks with me. Yeah, it is. Any other questions, guys? Yeah, that's a good. But the same guy, he won the Magic Circle. No, so we were at the Magic Circle one night, and my friend had just won the Close-Up Magician of the Year award, and the award is like a hand holding a fan of cards. It's really a pretty award. Martin took it from him to have a look at it, dropped it, and it smashed all the cards off the hand. The guy literally won it that night. So Martin was quite renowned for being quite klutzy. So yeah, good. Anything else? Oh. Go on, there's one of those as well. Go on, you go first. Oh, yes, sir.
What's the show you most admire that you haven't worked on?
That's a really good question. The show that I most admire that I haven't worked on. That's got illusions in it, or just generally? Just generally. That's a really good question. Well, it's weird. So Harry Potter isn't technically my show. So I joined the show in 2019. It was opened in 2017. So I have this really weird relationship with Potter where my job on that show is repetition, not creativity. So I can't change anything about the show. I just have to get it right every single night with the cast. And I wish I'd been there when they made it, because the process of making the show looks amazing. The workshops they did, the development time they get on these things. And now being in my own space where I am developing my own shows, I've got a couple of things that are coming up later, I'm hoping in the next couple of years, which will be equivalent to that. So Back to the Future probably is one that I would have loved to be part of. My friend Chris did the illusions on that. And just because I'm an 80s kid, so the DeLorean and watching DeLorean fly and all that sort of stuff, I would have loved to have been there to work on those sort of developments. But then even things like going back, like looking back, not necessarily to do magic, but working with people like Judi Dench or Ian McKellen, like the greats of the stage. I've been fortunate enough to work with a number of them, but to those sort of really iconic people, I would have loved to have done something where I could have helped them with something at their prime. So like when McKellen's playing Macbeth, to do a ghost appearance with him would have been really fun to do at that time. That's a great question, thank you. Anything else? We've got about 10 minutes. No?
I've got another one.
Go on.
Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Are magicians competitive?
Yes. So,
I haven't finished the question.
go on.
And are there any that you feel that are particularly competitive?
That aren't competitive. Are competitive, yeah. Well, I'm not going to name and shame, but yeah. So magicians are fiercely competitive. Yeah, they're fiercely competitive. So the perception in the magic world is that I can do it better than you. So if you develop a trick, so for example, I used to do a thing where I used to put a mobile phone inside a balloon. It's a lovely little trick. Your phone ends up inside a blown up balloon. It's a really cool little thing. I remember doing it. We go to Nando's quite a lot after Magic Circle and sit around and have chicken and chat after a lecture. And we were doing this trick. And what happened was, as you pass it around the room, everyone goes, that's great, but you should do this. And that's good, but you should do that. And they're missing the point that in its purest form, it's already a really good effect. And I've been doing it for years at tables and killing with it. So I don't need to change it, thank you very much. It works really well for my audience. What you mean is, you want me to know that you've got knowledge to make it what you view to be better. And that to me is where I struggle. I don't really like magicians, because I struggle with them, because in the theatre world, everything's collaborative. So you walk in with a trick. So like with the elephant vanish, I went in with this idea and said, here's how I want to make the elephant disappear, but I need every single department to make that one thing happen. So, and I think as a magician, they go in with a trick and go, there's the trick. And I know how to make it the best. And they'll ignore things like, so for example, I'll talk to lighting designers about wavelengths of light, hitting colors of props to make the props really ping. So we'll talk about, well, if it's that blue, it should be this light that hits it. And then we can have a conversation with the props team about making that blue. And then it'll really sing when it appears. But magicians won't think like that. they'll just care about what the appearance looks like, but they'll miss the fact that if they collaborated and spoke to the other departments, this would look even better. So magicians are fiercely competitive. And also there's a thing about, because what we do is essentially otherworldly, we're trying to make you guys believe that we can do things which aren't possible, but we know are. I think there's this belief that they want to try and be the one that is the best at doing that. But actually, I think the best magicians are people that aren't like that. So when you look at people like Darren Brown and David Blaine in particular, they don't compete. So when you see those people in interviews, they're very generous with their time and their methods, and they'll share stuff more so than people who keep it all locked away and don't want it to be known. So we have lectures, and people will sell their lecture notes. And often people that don't want to share are the ones they want to be seen as the guy that does that thing. But then you get the old guys who go, like, no, this is a really good version of this. Learn this and see what you do with it. And I think that's a better... And part of being Magic Circles, we're custodians of the art form, so we have to look after it and make it better for the next generation coming through. So when I do these sort of masterclass and stuff that I do, I try very much and instill to people that, like, you're going to learn some stuff, but what you do with it makes it better. So I want you to learn something and then go away and do something with it, rather than it being like, it has to be like this because that's how it was 20 years ago. The world's changed. We need to adapt to that. So when I see magicians coming out doing linking rings and dove magic, it had its place in time and it's wonderful, but I don't believe audiences now want that. I don't see people with rings on stage anymore. And then when you look at Blackpool, it's full of that still, because people want to go back to the past rather than going, what's now? Like, I'm yet to see a really narrative-driven piece at Blackpool where it's not a magic show. It's a story. And there's a really good magic show called In and of Itself by a guy called Derek Delgado. It's on Hulu, I think it is. And it's a story about his life, full of magic. But you don't see it as a magic show, even though he is a magician. And the moments that happen, it hits so much harder because you don't expect them. Whereas if you go and watch a magic show, you know there's magic, so you have to there'll be an expectation of what that magic's going to be. So, for example, when you see Potter, you know there's going to be magic in Potter. I did a show 2 years ago at the National called Tupperware of Ashes, all about dementia and Alzheimer's. So nobody expected any illusions in that show. But when they happened, they really struck chords with the audience because they put you into the place that character was in that moment and elevated the storytelling of it. I think I've waffled a bit there, but you get my point. Yeah, great, cool. Anything else, guys? We've got about 2 minutes. Yes?
In technology, you always have to have a backup for a backup.
Yeah.
Something might go wrong,
Yeah.
and that's so fundamental. How many backups do you need to have in the world of magician?
So great, yeah. So we call them outs.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's great, but we do. And we have contingency, so yeah. So I can tell you a really good example. There's my friend Sam used to have the 4 of clubs stuck to the base of his shoe, just on the off chance. So let's say, for example, you've picked a card, and you've picked the 7 of diamonds, but I think you've picked the 4 of clubs. So I go to you, there's your card, and then I reveal the 7 of diamonds, and you go, no, that's not my card. And I'm gutted because I've genuinely got it wrong. And you say, but I did pick the 4 of clubs. I can then lift up my foot and show the 4 of clubs on the base of my trick. And that's a better trick because it's on there. So you can do things like that where you think ahead. Sam tells a great story that when he was working a corporate gig, there was a really hard table that didn't really want to be entertained. And he had to go and see them because that's our job. And over he went. And the first thing the guy said to him was, we've heard you're not very good. If you are any good, show me the 4 of clubs. Okay? So he just lifted his foot up on the table and showed the 4 of clubs. And that was it. They went mad. And then that was all they saw for the night. Because you can't beat it. It's a 1 in 52, but you can't beat it. Do you know what I mean? So, so you have to think so far ahead to be able to pull off things that take seconds. So there's often, we have multiple ways of getting out of stuff. We always try and think about at least 3 steps ahead of our audience. And we'll set stuff up that sometimes take years to pay off. There's a really good story about a magician in the 50s who was in a tailor shop getting a suit altered, as magicians do, and he saw a senator in the same shop. And he said to the tailor when the senator left, if I give you $100, put a playing card inside the lining of that guy's jacket for me. And the tailor was like, all right, $100, why not? 4 years later, he's working a gig, sees that senator wearing that jacket. So he knows in that guy's jacket is a 2 of spades. So the magician forces the 2 of spades, make him pick the 2 of spades, makes it vanish, gives the guy a knife and says, cut open your jacket, sir. He cuts open his jacket and pulls out the 2 of spades from inside his jacket. That's 4 years. 4 years you waited to pull that off. But how many other jackets are there with other cards still waiting? Do you know what I mean? There must, because that's not going to be the only one he's got. So it is. It's all about, weirdly, I was doing some work with the RFU a couple of years ago, not this year, because they've been terrible this year, but with England a few years ago, we were talking about mistakes. And what we found out was that the England rugby team in particular, when they were passing the ball down the line to try and score a try, if they dropped the ball, they'd stop. and reset and run it again, rather than practicing that if you drop the ball, what happens? Practice the mistake of it. So we look to change that simply because I practice mistakes all the time. Mistakes happen all the time in my work, and I learn from them very quickly because I've been doing it long enough. But so we encourage them to practice that idea of like, that's gone wrong, fix it. And when we won the World Cup, there's a famous footage of Johnson under the post with the team saying, right, now you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that. And then they went on to do the drop kick that won the World Cup. And that was a pre-planned move. They were just waiting for the best time to activate it. And if you watch the footage of that, he gets really cross because Matt Dawson tries to go twice by himself to take the glory and nearly messes up the plan. And so you can see that they had that already in their heads as something they wanted to do. So, but yeah, it's a great point. We do have to have these sort of things in our heads. I think we've got time for one more. Any more? Go on.
What's the illusion you've got in your head that you've not yet figured out how to do it?
Oh, man. Well, at the moment, I'm working on a show called Magic at Chichester Festival Theatre about Houdini. It's about the relationship between Houdini and Conan Doyle. And Conan Doyle was a big believer in spiritualism and seances. Houdini was not. And Houdini spent his lifetime to debunk it, and Conan Doyle wanted to believe it to be true. And in the show, we are doing versions of Houdini's effects. So at the moment, my brain is in Houdini's diaries, reading methods of how he says he did things. But he was a notorious liar. so I've also got in my ear the writer going, but he's written it here, so it must be true. And I'm sort of going to him, yeah, but he's a magician, mate. Like, he lies. That's his job. So what he's exposing is probably not how he did it. And also, if we are going to do it that way, it means we couldn't take this show on tour, for example, because we can't build that equipment in every theatre we go to. So at the moment, the one that I'm trying to get my head around, there's two actually in that show. One is making him walk through a wall, standard. And the other one is we've got a moment where someone's going to be up a library ladder. There'll be no bookshelves around him. And it's on a revolve, so the ladder is slowly turning around the audience as we go into this next scene. And what my director wants is the librarian to be looking at books, then reach forward and a book appear in their hand, and then look at it. So I'm trying to work out where does a book come from to be there as you extend your hand out. If you're looking here, can you make a book appear here? Where could it come from? Is it a real book? So I'm trying to solve an appearing book and walking through a wall. At the moment are the two things I've got in my head. And then I go to Mumbai next week for the Times of India. I'm making a show for them. It's 125th anniversary. And for them, they want a moment where someone holds a box of newspapers, and the box opens itself, and then a load of newspapers fly up and fill the space. And that one I've sort of got. I've just got to work out the balance of the pages so that when they fly, they don't all just go in the same direction. I want them to look different so it looks really poetic. But yeah, I don't really think much further ahead than the show I'm on because otherwise I get too confused. But yeah, thank you. That's a great question. There was one more I heard. Someone else had another one. No? Yes?
I was only going to say, any simple tricks you could teach us for use in business?
Oh, that's a really good question. So actually, there's a book I can suggest. There's a book, and you guys might know this already. It's called a book called The Art of Influence and Persuasion by Dr. Robert Cialdini. Have you known this book? It's a really interesting book. It talks about levers in people. And he isolates 7 levers. And if you can recognize the lever in someone, you can pull that lever and they'll go to your way of thinking. So he thinks about things like reciprocity, scarcity, authority, these sort of things. It's why you have like a guy in a white coat coming out going, I'm a dentist, buy this toothpaste. You go, oh yeah, the dentist said I'll buy it, so I'll buy that toothpaste. Or why DFS always have a last-minute sale to sell their sofa that then next week is back on sale again for another last-minute sale. Scarcity, you want to buy it because it's going to run out. And the really good example is reciprocity, and he talks in the book about Mexico and Ethiopia, and how Mexico gave Ethiopia some money when Ethiopia was skint to help them out. Years later, Ethiopia was in depths of the worst famine it's ever had. Mexico went bankrupt, and Ethiopia, even though it was going to be detrimental to itself, gave the money back because it wanted to repay the good deed. So that to me is a really interesting book for magicians because when I work a room, I spend about the first 10, 15 minutes walking around, listening and seeing the sort of people I'll be working with to understand the sort of people I'll be interacting with. And again, go back to AI. I don't know how we teach AI to do that, by the way. How do you teach AI to read a room personality-wise rather than just physically? But yeah, so I'll walk, so I understand sort of people, so I know that if I need to impress this person, I should talk about the history of magic. But that person just wants to see eye candy, so I can do some flashy stuff for them to evoke the same reactions, because ultimately that's what I'm there for, is to make people gasp and all the rest of it. But yeah, so I'd say that's definitely one to look at. Yeah, I'd say that'd be my answer. Thank you. Cool. I think that's Time. Yeah, great. Guys, thank you. I hope I've spoken a lot, but thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.